What's going on, y'all? Today we got what NBA championship would mean to LeBron James' career, man. That's what he's talking about. It's in the thumbnail. That's why I know.
Oh, shut the light. Not the light. Motherfucker.
We're into the second round of the NBA playoffs, and at this point, the Larry O'Brien Trophy seems to be within reach to just about every team still in it. With the title up for grabs, this begs the question, what would an NBA championship mean to all these different superstars? First off, Jimmy Butler. Butler is already seen as one of the most clutch players in the league, but let me be clear, a championship would elevate him to a legendary status. Similar to how Dirk Nowitzki was elevated after his lone championship run in 2011. Just like Dirk, Butler is one of the most likable players in the game, and what helps our view of him is how the guy is basically always seen as the underdog. He wouldn't only be seen as simply a championship-winning underdog, but Butler would be seen as the championship leader of the greatest underdog in NBA history, as no 8 seed has ever won a championship before. On top of that, you throw in the fact that his squad is short-handed, as key pieces like Tyler Hero
I'm going to say what the NBA championship means for all the teams still in the NBA playoffs.
and Victor Oladipo are out with injuries. When it comes to legacy, that would be a championship ring that would carry the weight of 2 or 3 rings. Obviously, some people would try to diminish the accomplishment, inevitably calling an 8-seeded champion a fluke. But I don't think that would ultimately carry much weight, seeing how he recently and improbably led the Heat to the finals in 2020. Ultimately, out of all of the superstars, Jimmy might have the most to gain from winning a championship. Second, the New York Knicks. Yes, I'm saying the Knicks brand rather than a single player, considering how New York lacks that premier superstar player. With that being said, a championship in the Big Apple.
I said this in my recent reaction to the Knicks versus the Heat game 1. I said that. They don't got that superstar, man. They don't got that real superstar that's going to bring them over the top yet, man. That's what they need.
Would be a massive deal. The city is starving for a championship and haven't tasted the glory since 1973. It would cause a citywide hype and excitement that we haven't seen in many years. A Knicks championship would also prove that there's still a place for hard-nosed, old-school head coaches like Tom Thibodeau. It would also force the league to completely reevaluate how to construct a championship team, considering how this would be the most superstar-free champions in modern history. No disrespect to guys like Jalen Brunson, RJ Barrett, and Julius Randle, but they're not your typical leading stars of a championship team.
No,
Next, Joel Embiid. At the time I'm making this video, we don't know the extent of Embiid's knee injury, and it appears that he's likely to miss Game 1. With that being said, if the 76ers eventually win the championship with him leading the way, then the process is complete, and Embiid gets elevated to a whole new level of superstar, and would then have a very strong argument for the title of the best player in the game. Sure, he already has an argument to a certain extent, but a ring would almost ensure that he would secure that title, at least for a time. It would also do a lot for the NBA's view of big men. Back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, the belief was that big men were required to win championships. Since then, that narrative hasn't carried as much weight, as wings have been the ones dominating the modern era. But with a ring, Embiid could cause the basketball world to reevaluate their views. Today's video is brought to you by Private Internet Access. Watching basketball team buzzing online, viewed by that website, is something has pictures beyond past locality to over 30 million people. This VPN also gives you bonus allow you areas CIA servely as a one private internet if you access off and have to talk it as a choker just by clicking the link below. Next to Embiid, we have to talk about James Harden. Without sugarcoating anything, James Harden is now widely viewed as a choker in the playoffs. For one reason or another, the guy consistently plays below his usual form in the postseason. And even in the first round where they swept Brooklyn, Harden was grossly inefficient, hitting only 34.3% of his shots. So with that being said, obviously he has a lot to gain by winning an NBA championship. But specifically in this case, I think the manner in which he wins it matters tremendously. If he appears in any way to be carried to a ring by Embiid, then it will stop him from being propelled to the level of the greatest players of all time. But if Harden can come through with some signature performances where it becomes clear that a championship wouldn't have happened without him, then suddenly the choker narrative disappears, and we almost universally embrace Harden as a basketball legend. If Embiid's injury keeps him out for an extended period of time, and the 76ers still win the championship, then Harden basically undoes every shortcoming he's ever had in his career. Next, we'll look at Jason Tatum. If Tatum leads his Celtics to an NBA championship at the young age of 24, the media will be in a frenzy and people will start speculating if he's soon to be the face of the NBA. If he becomes a champion and a finals MVP so early in his career, suddenly his idolization of Kobe Bryant becomes less cringy and instead becomes a topic of comparison that we'll have to take very seriously. The Celtics and Lakers are also currently tied at a total of 17 titles in their rich history. If Tatum ends up being the star to propel the Celtics ahead of the Lakers, then it would be legendary to say the least, especially if it happened over the Lakers in the NBA Finals, as he kept LeBron from winning his 5th ring. Again, that's a lot of ifs, but regardless, a ring for Tatum could be the start of a new coronation within the league. We gotta look at Nikola Jokic. His legacy is at a point where it's begging for a championship ring. The man is likely the greatest passing big in the history of the game. He's got multiple MVPs, and he's already broken numerous records. The only missing piece is that elusive championship ring. But if he gets it, we start having a really interesting conversation about where Jokic ranks among the greatest centers and the greatest players in NBA history. His defensive capabilities are certainly a topic of heated discussion lately, but that becomes an afterthought if he...
after one ring, man. I need at least 2, 3. You know what I'm saying? To start putting them in the conversation of the greatest bigs of all time. I can't. One chip don't do it. One chip don't do it, bro. It don't do it. It don't. You know what I'm saying? Like, talent-wise, he's a very talented player, of course. Of course. All these players in the NBA are talented, but it's about greatness. And you know what I'm saying? Y'all help me realize. Part of greatness is winning, you know? Winning the whole thing, you know what I'm saying? That's greatness, man. That's greatness.
Wins a chip regardless. It's also worth noting that as long as the Nuggets have been a franchise, they've never won a championship, despite being title contenders in several different eras. If Jokic is able to achieve what Alex English and Carmelo Anthony never could, he'll be elevated to an icon in Denver, and the countdown will begin until he gets his statue outside of Ball Arena. Jokic is definitely one of the players who has the most to gain from winning a championship. Next up, Kevin Durant. KD is a rather interesting one. In years past, I would say that he could completely solidify his legacy by winning a championship and undo the disgust of joining the Warriors in 2016. But the midseason trade landed him on a Phoenix team that already had talent worthy of being a title contender. It's not quite 16-17 Warriors all over again, but let's just say that this ring would be a lot less impressive than if he won a ring with OKC in 2016 or 2012. I think a title in Phoenix would satisfy some of his naysayers, but it wouldn't completely eradicate the easy road narrative like it would if he had won in Brooklyn. We are holding up Kevin Durant to an extremely high standard by being this critical of him, but I think it's warranted given the fact that this man has the talent to be in the top 10 greatest players of all time. And when those are the players you're being compared to, the small details matter significantly. Ultimately, I think there's much to gain for him, but
you get graded on a crazy scale, man. You know what I'm saying? It's a crazy, you know what I'm saying? You're trying to be
less than some of the other superstars competing for a ring.
You're going to be
alongside of KD is Chris Paul,
man.
And unlike Durant, I think CP3 has a massive amount to gain from a title. Chris Paul is no...
He's been in the playoffs 15 times in his career, counting this one. Without one chip, it's crazy.
No longer at
but it's like, a lot of times the cards wasn't right for
the stage of his career where people are asking if he can be the best player on a championship team. but rather, he's in the twilight of his legendary and productive career, and a cherry on top of an NBA championship by any means necessary would do wonders for his legacy. Chris Paul has the resume and the stats to be in the conversation of the greatest point guards of all time, but unfortunately, he's usually never taken seriously in those discussions because of his lack of hardware. The same way John Stockton's legacy suffers because of his lack of a ring, Chris Paul is in that same boat. With a championship, CP3 is removed from the likes of Stockton and Allen Iverson, and instead is mentioned in the same breath as guys like Oscar Robertson and Isaiah Thomas. No one could argue the weight of his ring either, as it wouldn't be like Jason Kidd's ring in Dallas or Gary Payton's ring in Miami, because even at this point in his career, Chris Paul isn't just a role player on a solid team, but he's one of the best 3 players on his squad.
Yeah, he's one of the best 3, but yeah. Sometimes he looks a little like he's just staying around, though. He definitely looks a little role player-ish. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes.
And Phoenix is going to need his best if they're going to win the title.
You know what I'm saying?
Devin Booker is one of the more interesting ones on the list. The 26-year-old star has been killing it so far in these playoffs, averaging an absurd 35.5 points on nearly 60% shooting. As brutally unfair as it sounds, I think he's one of the stars who has the least to gain from winning.
We just had another
35. The main reason is because nearly all of the spotlight will go to the bigger names on his team, Kevin Durant and Chris Paul. In a way, I think he'd be viewed in the same way Klay Thompson was during the KD days in Golden State. He'll receive credit, but it will be the amount of credit allotted to a number 3 player on a championship team. He'll be the Robert Parrish of the '80s Celtics, or the James Worthy of the Showtime Lakers. You could even see him as the Chris Bosh of the Big Three's Heat. Again, that's such an unfair way to view him because he's playing at a level right now that's far beyond that of a third option. But based on the attention that Durant and Paul will demand, I think this is the unfortunate reality for him. I think there's a chance he can override that narrative, like average nearly 40 points in the finals and secure the series MVP. Simply put, Booker is swimming upstream on this one. Of course, we gotta look at Steph Curry. Last year was the one that truly established Steph's legacy, as people then started to view him in a greater light over his former teammate Kevin Durant. If Curry leads his squad to be his 5th championship team, then we'll have to engage in some conversations that once made us extremely uncomfortable. Like, has he now surpassed guys like Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Shaquille O'Neal, Tim Duncan, and Kobe Bryant on the NBA's all-time list? At several points during this season, there were massive concerns.
You know what I'm saying? And that's not too much of a stretch, honestly, if you ask me, man. That's not too much of a stretch. You know what I'm saying? You stretch it, you start stretching it when you say, you know what I'm saying, comparing to LeBron, comparing to Mike. Chill. You know what I'm saying? He's closer to LeBron than he is to Mike, I ain't gonna lie. But Bron's still going, so he's not gonna catch Bron. You know what I'm saying? He's not gonna catch Mike neither. He might catch Shaq, Kobe, and them. No cap. You know
that the Warriors wouldn't even make the playoffs. Now coming off of their recent victory over Sacramento, Golden State seems to have just as solid of a chance as anyone. If Curry repeats as champion for the 2nd time in his career, he'll have done something that most players on the top 10 list never accomplished. I don't think it's the largest leap of the various players on this list, but without question, another ring would make this already legendary player even more legendary. What would a legacy video be if we didn't talk about LeBron James? LeBron's lone championship in Los Angeles is still critiqued as the Bubble Championship, or as the Mickey Mouse ring. But if he was able to win it again in LA with this squad and against this level of competition, there's just about nothing anyone could say to take it away from him. Obviously, a total of 5 rings would equal James to the amount of LA's beloved Kobe Bryant, and as far as LeBron's complete resume, it would be hard to overlook it. Leading a team to an NBA championship in year 20 at age 38 is something that we've never seen before. He's already the NBA's all-time leading scorer, the all-time leading playoff scorer, and the all-time leader in all NBA teams.
What they're going to say is they're going to say my boy AD carried him to that joint. But it's okay though. You know what I'm saying? It's not all about that. If my son Bron's get Finals MVP, they can't say that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Finals MVP don't always mean, you know what I'm saying? But if my boy get Finals MVP, they can't really say too much. I ain't gonna lie. That's 5 rings, 5 Finals MVPs. Ooh-wee. Ooh-wee. Come on, man.
When you add a 5th championship ring, I would certainly view his career as the greatest NBA career of basketball history. At that point, anyone could call him the greatest player of all time, and I wouldn't tell them that they're wrong. Jordan would still have a strong argument based on the fact that
Let me stop playing though. I ain't gonna lie. Jordan would definitely still. You know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna lie. Me personally, bro. I don't know. It's gonna be a tough argument if Bron has 5. For him to clear Jordan for me like completely, he needs 6 rings or 6 rings and 6 Finals MVPs or 6 rings, 6 MVPs, something like that, man. I need at least 4 more accolades for him to surpass Jordan completely. But 2 more, it will be a great conversation.
His peak was above LeBron's. But as far as James's complete body of work, at that point, I don't think anyone could argue against him based on that perspective. If James is serious about catching the ghost in Chicago, I believe this is the year to do it. We also got a look at Anthony Davis. For all the various frustrations he's caused me with his glass body, when he's healthy, he's about as good as anyone. This postseason, he has a real opportunity to establish himself as the best player on a championship team. Again, I think Davis is one of those players who needs the details to play out in his favor. If he wins a second championship, but LeBron is once again the best player in the finals, then AD will continue to be viewed as a natural-born second option, a guy who has the talent to be a franchise leader, but needs a captain to lead the way. But if AD wins the finals MVP and clearly outperforms LeBron, then he's elevated to another level of not just Laker legends, but NBA legends, launching himself into the conversation of the greatest big men to ever play the game. So what do you guys think? Who has the most to gain from this NBA post?
LeBron James. Never. That's who got the most to gain, my brothers and sisters. This could be the GOAT conversation over, you know? If Bron plays crazy enough. You know what I'm saying? It could be GOAT conversation done. For some. You know what I'm saying? It'll still be open for me, but, you know. Bron getting this chip this year, y'all. Mark my words, bro. Y'all see I'm running through playoffs right now. Doing niggas bad, man. If y'all enjoyed this reaction, make sure you click on the last reaction on your screen right now, right there. And I'm out of here, man. Alright.